Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Curry Parker. Welcome to the Understanding Human Design podcast. Today, we're going to be talking to a manifester, which is a type that we don't often get to have a lot of conversations with. So I'm excited to kind of pick her brain and get some deeper insights into not only the process of connecting to your creative flow and why that's so important, but also explore the relationship between being authentic and your sense of self-worth. We're going to be talking today to Tara Kinden, who is the CEO and founder of Worth Camp, and also the host of the Worthy Woman Collective podcast. She works with guiding women to become authentically aligned with their self-worth, leading from personal experience, 2 decades of coaching, which you're still counting. I stopped counting at a certain point, Tara. She does human design. She's a level 2 human design specialist, and she, of course, uses her own intuitive guidance. Her vision is that all women feel powerful, worthy, creative, and authentic in the way in which they express themselves in the world. Welcome, Tara. I'm so excited to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I'm going to be working really hard during our conversation to not ask you any questions. And that's going to sound counterintuitive for a podcast interview. But part of why I'm going to be doing that is because one of the things that we teach is that when you're talking to any of the types in human design that have an undefined sacral, that's going to be your manifestors, your projectors, and your reflectors, that they are a type that are not necessarily designed to answer questions. When you ask them questions, it causes them to draw on their conditioned sacral. So I'm going to make open-ended statements and invite you. You don't need my invitation, you're a manifestor, but explore with you some of the thoughts and ideas that you work with consistently. So I want to start first with just an exploration that's more around what is it around your experience of being a manifestor and what it feels like to be a manifestor. And I want to start with just an exploration of what is your sense and your experience of your creative flow. I'm wondering whether you can share some of that with us.
Well, I will say, when I was younger, it was something that I was very creative, hands-on creativity, and very imaginative. And I do think that over a period of, I think it was the education system actually that got squished out a little bit, but I was very creative going into my 20s. I was into music, released an album. I was always doing something in the creative arts in some way, shape, or form. And I burned myself out after I was running a yoga studio. And after that, I had my son at 40, and I just kind of I was very much coasting. And then there was this element where I was introduced to human design, and it just sort of, because I had no idea that I was a manifestor. I have never been able to work in a 9-to-5 job. I'm the worst employee ever because it's just not my jam. And I was thinking, I always thought there was something wrong with me because my family is like corporate conditioned to work. And I'm like, I don't get it, but now I get it. So that was a relief to hear that. And it led me to a little bit of liberation to explore, like, what is my creative flow and how do I tap into it? How do I access it? And I mean, I really was introduced to human design early, like the beginning of 2019, end of 2018. So I had like 1 year of exploration. And last year, I've already written this year off, just so we're clear. 2020 like imploded. So it was the year where I was like, okay, now what is your creative flow? And how can you just be in the flow of life? Because there is no pattern, there is no routine, there is nothing to hold on to. So I decided to pay a lot of attention to training. This is where I dove into my trainings and learn more about what is a manifestor, how do I operate in the world, and how can I tune into really getting familiar with my intuition, because I'm very intuitive, but also there's an element of timing. So it's like I get a pulse to do something, but I also need to check in like into the heart to say, is this something do I feel good to do this? I always have to ask myself, like, do I feel good to do this? And if it's a yes, and the timing feels correct, I just do it. I mean, the worst thing that happens is I do something, it doesn't work out. I try it and it's a disaster, or it's great, or it's okay.
So we've been talking about, and I know the work that you do, a lot of what you focus on a lot is the empowering women to really connect with their worth. That's, your worth camp is all about that. That's the theme of your podcast. Talk to me about the relationship between being connected to your authentic self, and in your case, your creative flow, and your sense of value, and why that's so important for women in particular.
I think we have this conditioned understanding that our bodies are our worth, our money is our worth. Like, we are only as valuable as how many likes we have on Instagram, or how much money is in our bank account, or how our bodies look. Like, it's all an external view of value, where if we feel not great, not well inside, we have no sense of direction, we have no sense of commitment to ourselves, like to really value, oh, I'm tired today, maybe I should actually rest instead of pushing myself harder. Like, one of my biggest, the elements to the work that I do is like, how can we get out of here? Because everything up here is about we're thinking, trying to figure things out. How do I make more money? How do I get a better body? How do I do this? But it's like, do you even care about that? So it's like, drop into your heart to say, like, is that actually an important thing to me? Because as we know, our values are going to be changing over the next little while. The way we view and value ourselves and our money and all of it is going to change. And I think there's an element of dropping into the heart to be like, hey, do I care about this? Is this even important to me? And 2020 was like, is your family important to you? Because it's kind of all you have when everything else is falling away. Mm-hmm. Like, this baseline of, am I protected? Am I safe? Do I feel secure in my own home, body, environment? And then how can I feel more powerful in that? Well, it's very easy. Like, look at all of the things that you're telling yourself, all the stories. What is the story you're telling yourself about yourself? Because how do we reprogram that? And not reprogramming it from up here or from an external place, but reprogramming it from, like, how do I want to feel in my life? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how do I want to show up? So that's literally the first question I ask somebody is like, what does your future self have in store for you? And how do you want to feel?
So, I think, I did a survey with my list a few years ago, and I think we had a huge response, which was a little bit surprising. And one of the questions that I asked on my survey was, what's your sense of self-worth like? And 97% of the people who responded to the survey, and this was mostly women, I would say, I don't remember the exact demographics, but it was 87 or 90% of the respondents were women. 97% of the people who responded to the survey reported themselves as having low self-worth. And, I actually cried when I started analyzing that, because I thought, one of to me, the beautiful things about human design is that every chart is just sort of like an adventure and a really beautiful variation on an incredible theme, right? But that's a mind-blowing number. And, it's not a scientific study, it's a random selection of, a very specific selection of people. But, it's such a chronic issue. Why do you think it's such a chronic issue?
Well, I think because we're validating our value externally. Mm-hmm. I don't think people have an understanding of what self-worth is. When we look at, like, self-love and self-care, it's, oh, go take a bubble bath, go meditate, go do all of these things that are great. Yes, do those things, please. Like, don't stop doing those things. But also, it's like, when you look at yourself in the mirror, is there any element that you're looking at that you love, that you like? Can you look at yourself in your mirror and not feel like, oh, I hate that, I hate this? Like, if that's the story you're telling, which we all tell that story, like, mm-hmm. I don't care who you are, every single woman, there's an element of something about herself externally that she does not like. And then that's a direct reflection of what the story is we take internal. So then it becomes our internal story. And then we have this shaky self-worth, and people think, oh, they build the self-confidence piece is an extra, it's like the mask we put onto the world. Like, I'm together. There's nothing wrong with me. I have lots of confidence. Confidence and self-worth, I believe, are two totally different things. And really helping women understand, like, we're all in this together. Like, we're all in this together. We all experience this. And there is no one who's got this perfect. But if we can come to a place where we understand, like, us just being here, like you say all the time, we're a once in a lifetime cosmic event. Us just physically being in this body is a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to remember that every day because it sounds so like, oh, right? But it's the reality is you got gifted with this body. You're here to do something beautiful and wonderful, whether that's the way you cook your meals, whether that's the way you interact with your family, whether that's the way you change the energy of your own heart to, change the energy of your entire family. Like, I like to think of women as the gatekeepers to the house. Like, they're the ones who are spinning plates. They know where everything is. They know where everyone has to be at all times. They know the dog needs the medication. This person needs to go here. And like that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of effort and energy. And where are you in the mix of all of this doing? So I like to bring it back in instead of it always being so outwardly projected. Like, our worth isn't somebody telling us we're beautiful, somebody telling us we're smart, or that we're, really great at doing something. That's us telling ourselves, like, hey, you actually, like, decompress at the end of the day. You did a great job today. Even though you feel like you didn't do anything, like, you managed to get these humans, tiny humans, out the door. You managed to do, brush your hair and put your pants on the right way when you feel the way you feel, like,
Yeah. And some days that's it. that's where the bar is.
Has anyone gone out the door with their yoga pants on inside out? Like, I taught a yoga class with my pants on inside out. And it's like, this is the world we live in.
Yes. So, so you talked about step one being get out of your head, drop into your heart. How does it feel when you're in alignment with your heart versus doing what your head tells you to do? How do you know the difference, in your experience between those two pieces?
It's expansive. Like, you just take a deep breath, you drop in, you just feel different. You feel, if you've ever had a sense of, if you've ever walked in nature, you just feel this sense of, like, ground. You're like, okay, the noise just settled. I think when you're in your head, it's just so noisy. It's so chaotic. There's just so much going on. It's like, I like to think how the manifesting generators have like 50 computer screens open at the same time. But it's all good. They get you get it. You get this. You have all these screens open and your hair is on fire. You're answering phone calls. You still know. For me, that's what my mind is like when I'm not in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for you, that's like second nature. That's how you roll. But you'll know when you're too much up here.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take yourself out, like, probably for you, it's like getting into nature as well. It's like when you get into a place where you have less connection to Wi-Fi and people, you get a chance to get back into your own energy. I think that's another thing. It's like, no matter what type you are, you need to get into your own energy to know, like, how am I actually feeling? Especially right now. I mean, look at the electric buzzing energy all around us from all the hecticness that's happening. How do you drop in here when it just feels like fireworks?
That is the question, isn't it?
Yeah. So how I've been doing it is that I feel, I know it, I feel it. You can't get away from it. So it's like, how are you going to feel it and deal with it? Are you going to drink too much, eat too much, do things that watch too much Netflix? Are you going to bury yourself in things are taking you further away from your best self? Because look, we all do it. You're going to do it. But at what point will you pull yourself back to say, okay, listen, I got to get myself straightened out here to say, I'm worth doing the work it takes to feel better in my body so that I'm able to be like the woman I'm here to be.
Mm-hmm. Totally. So you have a program coming up, the Worth Code Masterclass, and then a Worth Camp starting next year. Tell me a little bit about the work you do and the programs you've got coming up.
So right now, anyone can go to my website and I did a free human design course. So they can go and take this little mini course to tell them their type and all of that. And then those who want to go deeper, and I think we could all go deeper into unlocking our own value, our own worth, because I believe there's a special, unique code, and everybody's got the same code. It's just like putting the pieces together to open up the lock to then settle in. So the the Worth Code Masterclass is the gateway to Worth Camp. So for those, who just want to drop into their heart and get out of their head, this masterclass is all about helping you to do that. It's about accessing the parts of yourself you might have forgotten about. It's about stepping into your personal power. Like, where are you not being creative, and how can you put these pieces together so that you can feel grounded and settled, especially when it's so crazy right now. So that's November 18th. I just felt like this year I needed to do something for the people. Because Worth Camp, I was going to do it in April this year, but when everything sort of imploded, I was like, this is not the year for that. Nobody has the headspace for it. So next year in April, I'll be launching Worth Camp, and it'll be like the deep dive. So once you get the appetizer of the Worth Code, you're obviously going to want to stay for dinner. So you'll come and take Worth Camp. And then at the end of the year, if we're allowed to meet in the flesh again, I'm going to have a Worth Camp retreat where it'll be like the dessert, and it'll be the celebration, and it'll be the connection of the humans. So we can actually touch and get into each other's heart energy.
Oh, it sounds so good, doesn't it?
Right.
So I want to ask you one last question, and this is just an exploration with you for the sake of just sharing with people where I think all of us have been. And the reason why I want to just explore this for a second is I find that, especially when we are working in the field of personal growth and development in a role where we are teaching and sharing, and we have a Facebook, personas and Instagram personas, that sometimes the personas we present are not completely aligned with truth. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think it's very easy sometimes to, as a personal growth and development teacher, to sometimes really only show the shiny side of the coin and not show the shadow, and not talk about our own struggles and challenges. And certainly I would say that if you've made it through this year and you were completely unscathed and nothing has touched you, and you're just perfectly happy because you have a great mindset and that's saving everything, that you might not be presenting yourself from the most authentic perspective. And one of the things that you and I have talked about privately, and that I really appreciate and value about you, is that you've been really transparent about how challenging this year has been for you personally. And certainly I would say that, I have felt the same way, that, there have literally been days when, at the end of the day, I'm like, okay, everybody's still alive. Yay. That was the bar, and if they got fed, and if the toilets were cleaned once a month, it was a good month, right?
Yep.
So I'm wondering if you'd be willing just to share with us a little bit about why you put off Worth Camp this year, and you said, okay, that's it, I got to pull back.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. I've cried on many calls this year, period. All kinds. Because I think, for so many years, it wasn't safe for me to express that. It wasn't okay for me to cry in somebody's office, because there was something mentally wrong with me if I was crying in somebody's office, right? And I think this year is finally the veil is lifting. We're human beings having a human experience. It's hard. Being here isn't exactly easy. And now we don't have a roadmap. So it's okay, I had all these beautiful plans, but when I could sense something was really not going to work, because I was first of all, I don't have the headspace or energy to do this, because daycare got obliterated. My husband was at home, and I was this is this is a lot of action going on in my house right now that I can't even like have a phone call without hearing something going on. How am I going to create all this content and do all this stuff? So I was like, well, whatever. I record podcasts, and if there's people screaming in the background, that's just going to be the way it is. Mm-hmm. But what I recognized was that every single person I was having a conversation with who would have been perfect for Worth Camp was like, I'm so exhausted and I don't know what to do with myself. I'm like, yeah, you need this, but people just don't have they don't have the capacity for it. Mm-hmm. So me forcing it would have been a bad idea. And I intuitively felt that. So I just didn't do it because I knew in my heart, I was like, I'm not even up to this. Like, I'm not up to doing this. So why would I try to force it out? And as far as social media goes, I live on Instagram stories. I literally haven't posted on my Facebook wall since like 2019, I swear, because I felt like it was just getting too curated. And until I figure out a way to come back at it that feels good and aligns, like I'm just not posting on it. I live on stories. That's where all my like real life crazy happens. And I put the real life crazy because that's the real life. Mm-hmm. I'm not afraid to share like what's going on in the background because it's messy, but that's part of the fun.
I'm glad you think it's fun.
Right. It's fun. I mean, like, what am I gonna do? You have two choices. You can either laugh about it or cry about it, and I do both. It just depends on the day. But I will say, I took 2 months off of all social media for June and July, and that was the most liberating, freeing thing I ever did for myself because it gave me a chance to close off the external so I could create from within. Because I think sometimes when we're highly creative, well, all of us who are creating anything, which should be everybody, it's like when you're in that creative space, but you're still connected to all these other things and you're looking and reading at this, and then you're like creating, you think to yourself, is this mine or is this somebody else's? Mm-hmm. So it just gives you an opportunity to come back into yourself to like identify, what do I want to create and what does it look like and how is it mine?
Yeah.
So hopefully that answered.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that so much. And I really have appreciated your transparency throughout the year on just various calls and just in the conversations that we've had, because I think, I think it's really okay to not be okay. And I think when we look at the will center, which is the seat of our value in the chart, and we look at the function of the will center and recognize that rest is part of our value, and that part of what I think we are giving to ourselves this year is permission to say rest is sacred, and it's a sacred way of protecting our value and our sustainability, which is, the other thing that lives in that center. And that if we don't nurture our own sense of worth, and I love that you're teaching women to do that, and see that as sacred and as an essential component to being able to create sustainably and sustainability policies, procedures, choices, we're going to have a really hard time. And I think learning to allow yourself to value yourself enough to say, I can't today, and it's okay, is huge. So
yeah, I mean, and resting is not easy when you're programmed to be doing all the time. Having rest periods like today, I will say I'm on a detox. This is day two of the detox. And then, like on top of that, you throw in your menstrual cycle. Like I was thinking I need a nap. So I had a nap. I don't nap, but today I was like, well, I'm just going to have a nap. And I think, hey, if you can do that and you need to do it, just do it. So you can show up more powerfully later.
Yeah, exactly.
Like 5 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have never had a nap. I would have kept going.
Yeah, totally. So awesome. So where can people learn more about your work, Tara?
So they can go to my website, which is just www.tarakinden.com. And if you're wanting to sign up for the masterclass, it's just my website. So www.tarakinden.com/the worth code.
Awesome. So Kinden is spelled Kinden, you guys.
Yeah.
So just like it sounds. So don't make it complicated. So awesome. So Tara, Tara, Kinden, Kinden.com. Go check it out. Thank you, Tara, for being here today and for
Thank
sharing your
you.
wisdom and your manifestor creative flow with us. And may you continue to enjoy the creative flow and to also recognize the power and the beauty of naps and
Yeah.
the way in which you help
Amen.
transform and connect too. So be well. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us.
Thanks so much.